Everyone was watching the second hand hit 3 o'clock. The bell rang. Class was over. Not for the day, though, for summer. Most of the kids rushed out of the door as if it wasn't a drill but a real fire and they had to evacuate as quick as possible. I guess the 4 fire drill practices we had this year paid off because they were out that door before I could even bend down and pick up my backpack off the floor. My science teacher, Mr. Calvin, was sitting up at his desk grading final exam papers before report cards were going to be mailed out the following week. I walked up to him and said, "Mr. Calvin." He was almost startled in his seat as he fixed his glasses. "Hey, Brady, I didn't notice you were still here. I thought you bolted out of here like the rest of them." "Nah," I said. "It's not like I have anywhere to go but home. What's the point of getting there faster when I'll be spending most of my time there anyway over the summer break?" Mr. Calvin smiled. "It's true, you'll probably see more of the TV than a blackboard," he laughed. "But seriously, you have no plans to go anywhere at all? Travel someplace?" "Well," I said, "it depends. I might see my friends for a bit and hang out, but my aunt's still working in another state until the end of the year. And that leaves me and my grandma, and lately she's not been wanting to go out even for groceries, so I'm stuck taking care of her," I said shruggingly. Mr. Calvin didn't want to pry, but he asked me how my search was going for my biological parents, who kind of dropped me off when I was a baby on my mom's sister's porch and drove away, never to be seen or heard from again. I told him, sure, I used to care a lot about it last year, of how maybe it would be nice to have them at my grade 12 graduation next year, but I feel it's too late now, I said. And the other thing is, why would I want to know so bad who they are and why they abandoned me? They basically missed most of every first accomplishment in my life, like when I first walked, my first word, or like my first day of school, even my first job. I don't need them, I said. Mr. Calvin put his hand on my shoulder, and he told me he understood the pain far too well, that he was taken away from his parents when he was 4 because they were unfit to take care of him. He wasn't bathed or fed, and the daycare noticed. Child neglect was one thing, but to purposely be treated that way because he was a mistake was another. Mr. Calvin said, "Throughout my life, I never made it seem like I was nothing without my parents. I worked hard and proved to the system that I was just fine, that I'm not a loser. I loved science, and here I am 15 years later, teaching it." I thanked Mr. Calvin for being a great teacher this semester, and before I walked out the door, he said, "Brady, I'm teaching grade 12 chemistry next year. I hope you added that to your schedule of classes." I told him I did, and he was happy to hear. He told me I did very well on the final exam, even though he couldn't release my grade to me. And maybe I could also join the club he was creating to enter a competition next spring for a chance to win a trip to Disney World. "I'll think about it," I laughed. "Ah, come on," he said. "I'll train you. I think you will do very well. You're brilliant. You remind me of me." "I'll let you know," I smiled and wished him a great summer and left the room. This afternoon was so hot, and I think the school AC was broken. I walked to my locker. Most of the school lockers were cleaned out and empty at this point after a memo went out to parents last week. All I had left was a binder for my math class and a water bottle. I put everything in my bag. I walked down the hall and saw most people from my grade in the front foyer signing yearbooks. I was holding on to mine and went around to some of the students that I knew in my classes and asked them to sign their names. I didn't have very many friends, but I also wasn't a loner. I guess I fell into that pressure that because we saw each other in classes every day, that we knew each other, and although we may not be friends, we were somewhat cool, and that meant it was fine to sign each other's yearbooks, even if all they wrote was "Have a great summer" and signed their names at the bottom. I sat down at one of the tables that was laid out in the quad and took sips from my water bottle. I flipped through the yearbook and saw all the highlights of the school year, from the sports teams to the Halloween carnival, and the exceptionally cringe grade pictures where everyone was showing fake grins on command by the photographer. My phone dinged in my pocket. I took it out and checked my texts. It was my buddy Will. He was shooting hoops in the smaller gym which was tucked in the far end of the school, opposite from where I was seated. He asked if I was still at school and if I would like a ride home with him. It was a pretty hot day today, and Will's parents had air conditioning in the car. I said sure, and started to make my way over to him. I looked around, and at this point most of the students had already left. The hallways were empty. Must have happened when I was focused and looking through the yearbook. Since the AC in the school was out, most of the lights were turned off to keep it somewhat cooler inside. I was almost by the small gym when I spotted a water fountain and decided to fill my bottle up, as it was one big gulp away from becoming empty, and I was feeling very thirsty. I was in the middle of filling my bottle when I heard what sounded like the soles of sneakers screeching past me. I turned around to look down the hallway, but it was dark, and I couldn't see if anybody was there. That was weird. I finished filling the bottle to the brim and took a couple gulps and closed the cap. I thought I saw something moving. I stared down as far as I could, but I didn't see anyone. It seemed, though, like someone was watching me. Although the hallway by the lockers near the gym were dark, the sunlight from the exit doors nearby shone through to make it visible where I was going. Before I could even open the gym door, it flung open, nearly hitting me in the face. It was Will and a couple of his grade 12 friends who played on the basketball team this year. "Hey," he said, "what's up?" "Not much," I replied, "but thank you for almost striking me with the door, which could have given me a broken nose." "No problem," he joked. "That might have made it in the top 10 interesting things that will probably happen to you this summer." Will waved goodbye to his friends, and we walked to the front of the school where his parents were already waiting. I lived about a 9-minute drive from the school, and Will lived within the same neighborhood as me, but a couple streets over. I thanked his parents for the ride and said I'd visit Will a few times over the summer. I unlocked the front door and saw my grandma in the kitchen plating some food. She saw me and walked over to give me a hug and kiss. She's been quite affectionate lately, even when I live with her and only leave the house for school for 8 hours. She just missed me deeply. "I made you a turkey club sandwich, dear, with a glass of apple juice and some chips." "Thanks, Grandma," I said. "Let me first get changed out of these sweaty clothes, and I'll be right back down." I walked upstairs and threw my bag on the floor. I changed out of my jeans and a black tee and put on shorts and a white tee. That felt so much better. The house was cool, and this made it even more relaxing and comfortable. I jogged back downstairs, where now my grandma was sitting in the living room watching the news. I went into the kitchen, sat at the table, and quietly ate my food. It was a simple sandwich, but it tasted so much better than what I would have made. My grandma's voice trailed into the kitchen. She told me that my aunt called in to check in, and that a box was delivered from her this morning. I left my half-eaten sandwich in the plate and took a couple sips of my apple juice. I then walked to the front door, and I saw a package sitting on the round table. I took the box back into the kitchen and finished up my food before grabbing a pair of scissors and breaking through the tape. I heard my grandma's voice once again. Auntie Elena said that she was able to get some time off of work closer to August, and maybe that the two of you could do something fun over the break. "Sounds good," I said. I finally got the medium-sized box open. I looked inside. I found some of my favorite junk food, the latest Assassin's Creed video game, 2 $50 gift cards to use at the local mall food court, a couple t-shirts, baseball gloves, and there was a note at the bottom of the box. It read, "Dear Brady, hope you had a great grade 11 year. Here are some things to get you started on your summer vacation. Enjoy them, and I'm happy to say I'll be coming home in August. I would love for us to hang out and maybe take a short trip somewhere. I miss you and love you, son. Signed, Aunt Elena." My Aunt Elena was the best. According to her, she was 5 years younger than my real mom. She's still unmarried, and she was in her early 20s when she took me in. She loved me like I was her own, and even though she's a bit far away, she's always made me a priority. Her care packages from time to time makes me feel grateful that she took this responsibility to bring me up instead of pushing me into the system and be adopted by foster parents. I washed my dishes and asked my grandma if she needed anything. I told her that I would go upstairs to shower and maybe play the new video game my aunt sent me. She said she was fine and would probably end up taking a nap on the couch. After my shower, it was maybe about 10 minutes into gameplay when I heard my grandma shouting up to me from downstairs. "Brady! Brady!" she called. I opened my room door and walked downstairs. She was holding the cordless phone and said it was Will. That's weird. I had a cell phone. Why didn't he try calling me there? I answered the phone. Will immediately started talking so fast that I had to have him slow down. "Dude," began Will. "Why didn't you answer your cell? I called you a few times." "It must be on silent," I said. "I was playing the new Assassin's Creed game, my aunt." Before I could finish, Will cut my excitement off. "Listen, bro," he said. "Jimmy is dead." "What?" I said. "Jimmy from our math class? The class clown?" "Yes," he said. "The custodian found him this evening. His neck was sliced open end to end. He bled out, man." I didn't know what to say. Do they know if he did it to himself or someone did it?" "I don't know," replied Will, "but his body was found in a locker by the health studies wing. Police are looking into it, but I'm pretty sure someone did it. And why would anyone kill themselves inside their lockers hoping not to be found?" That was true, I thought. I finally got off the phone with Will. My grandma asked if everything was okay, and I was just about to tell her calmly about what I heard from Will when the breaking news image popped up on the TV and the reporter began talking about the incident that happened at our school. It was the same information Will gave me. My grandma's eyes widened in horror. I clicked off the TV and I told her not to worry. We were safe, and I gave her a knitting kit to keep her busy for the rest of the evening. I went back to my room and turned off my game. I wasn't in the mood to play. I lay in bed for a solid hour before something from earlier today caught my memory. I was at the gym filling my water bottle when I heard running, and I felt like I was being watched. The health studies wing was right next to the hallway I was in. The hairs on my arms stood up, and I sat in bed. I texted Will to call me, but when I got no response, I tried to fall back asleep. It was hard knowing that it was possible the murder of Jimmy happened at the same time I was in the same part of the school. Was the killer watching me? The next morning, I heard my phone ring. I picked it up. It was my aunt, Elena. She wanted to ask me if I received the care package. I said thank you, and I already started to play the game. She was happy to hear. Her tone then turned into a bit of a concern when she told me that she had spoken to Grandma, and Grandma let her know about the incident that was on the news last night about the student that was killed from my school. I told her I couldn't believe it either, but I did leave out the information that I was in the school at the same time it happened. My aunt advised me to not go anywhere for a while until the police dealt with the matter and caught the person. I knew my aunt was scared and she was trying to protect me, so I agreed. I hung up the phone and went to brush my teeth. My phone was on the counter when it started vibrating. I rinsed my mouth quickly and looked at the screen. It was Will. I answered. "Hey," I said. "What's up?" he asked. "I'm just brushing my teeth," I said. Will told me he got my text from last night, but he was kind of not in the mood to look at his phone as a lot of messages were coming in about what happened to Jimmy. "I know," I said. "I wanted to talk to you about that also. I think we should meet up." "Sure," he said. "I just have to wait until my parents leave for work. They're carpooling today, so there will be one car available. I can drive down to you and we can go somewhere." The idea sounded great, but then I remembered that my aunt told me to stay home and to not go anywhere. I told Will that, and he didn't mind coming over and hanging out with me. We hung up the phone, and I went to the kitchen, which smelled like pancakes. My grandma was on the phone with one of her sisters in Ireland. It was about 1 p.m. there. She was laughing on the phone, but managed to give me a slight wave of acknowledgement. I doused some maple syrup on my pancakes. There was also a plate of bacon with some hash browns and a glass of orange juice. I read an Archie comic book while I ate breakfast. I loved Archie and the gang. It was good entertainment. It beat watching TV or sitting in front of a computer on the net. After finishing my lunch, my grandma asked me to leave the plate in the sink and she would take care of it. Once I got to my room, I went for my second attempt to play Assassin's Creed, but my mind just wasn't in it. I kept thinking about what happened last night. It was the worst start to the summer. I stayed in my room most of the day and told my grandma not to prepare lunch. I was sure Will would bring some food. He always bought fast food. Sure enough, he did. He got to my house a bit after 2 p.m. We took the food and iced coffees to my room. I bit into my Whopper and it tasted like heaven. I normally didn't eat fast food because I preferred home-cooked meals, but this overly processed food once in a while was definitely a nice treat. "So, what is it that you wanted to tell me?" Will said curiously. I told him about the close timeline with Jimmy's death and me hearing someone run past the hall when I went to meet up with him at the gym. Will suggested that we should tell cops about it, but I just didn't want to go through hours of interrogations if there was no connection. "Any news on how Vanessa is?" I asked. "Nope. replied Will. I tried to call Jocelyn since they're best friends and ask about Vanessa, but Jocelyn said that Vanessa doesn't want to talk to anyone right now, that she needs her space. I don't blame her, I said. Wasn't she dating him for 3 years? 2, said Will. They broke up that 1 year when she wanted her independence and dated everyone in his group of friends. Wow, right. I forgot about that, I said. And Jimmy took her back? Man, he didn't have standards. Look, said Will, I got a plan. You see, there's a little party happening at Kyle's house. From what I know, it hasn't been canceled as of yet, and Jocelyn told me that Vanessa will most likely make an appearance, so maybe we should just go and get some facts from her. Make sure she didn't kill him. So you want to play private detective? I laughed. Why not? Said Will. Okay, let's do it, I said. That night, I told my grandma that Will and I would be playing video games and didn't want to be disturbed. She always respected my privacy, and I knew she wouldn't be coming up to check up on me. Will and I snuck out of my room using a bedsheet as a rope and dropped down in the backyard. We then walked to the front of the house and got into his car. Luckily, the blinds were drawn in the front window, so my grandma wouldn't see us leave. We drove to Kyle's house. There was almost 30 people from school there. They were underage drinking and listening to loud music. Sounds like a party. Kyle's parents were on a business trip, so he thought he would throw an impromptu get-together to celebrate school ending. Jocelyn was in the kitchen with her hands in a bowl of Doritos, holding a Bacardi Breezer in her other hand. She saw us and gave us a hug. She was clearly a bit drunk, and it showed in her excitement. Will got straight to the point and asked where Vanessa was. Jocelyn said she went up to Kyle's room with his friend Colton. She was feeling sad and wanted someone to talk to. You're her best friend, Jocelyn, said Will. Why didn't she talk to you? There was a long pause. Will and I weren't buying it, and we bolted up the stairs. We didn't know which room belonged to Kyle, so we checked every single one. However, there didn't seem to be anyone there. Will started talking loudly. We know you're in here hiding Vanessa. What a dumb thing to do, to come upstairs into someone's room with a boyfriend other than yours, who obviously just died yesterday. Seems like you've moved on pretty fast, you whore. We heard sobbing coming from the closet. Will unleashed some kind of confidence in him like a beast because he swung open the door with such force. Sitting inside was Colton. He was crying, and he was startled to see us. Where is Vanessa? I asked. Colton was quivering now. He pointed his finger to the bed. Will knelt down and looked underneath. He jolted back, saying, Holy shit, Vanessa, she's dead. I turned around. You did what to her? I yelled at Colton. Colton said he didn't do anything, that there must have been a masked person in the room long before they got there. Did he look like someone from our school? Was he invited to the party? I don't know, said Colton. Think harder, Colton, I urged. I don't know, cried Colton. He could have been older than us. He had gloves on. It was hard to tell. I do remember seeing that he had glasses on. I kind of stopped listening to Colton talk when I saw the blood begin to seep out from under the bed. Where did the person go who did this? I asked Colton. He escaped through the window. It seemed like Colton was telling the truth because Will and I could see the window was half open. We then left the room and told Jocelyn to not go upstairs and to call 911, that the party was over. Vanessa was dead. What the hell is happening? I said. 2 people dead a day apart. They both have a connection to each other. Obviously, I think this was targeted, I said. Will said although he's not a professional detective, it seemed like the same weapon was used to kill Vanessa was also used on Jimmy. We got into his car and drove towards my house. We didn't want to be part of the whole aftermath of this. It will be over the news in minutes, and I couldn't risk my aunt finding out that I disobeyed her and went to try and solve a crime. I don't know what Will was thinking, but his instinct was telling us that if the killer left on foot, he would have to be in the area of the school by now. What? I said. We're not going to the school this late at night. It was pretty obvious that Will didn't give a damn and he wanted to be targets too by taking us to the killer. I just hope he was wrong about this, because if he wasn't, this could be our last moments alive. Will parked the car in the parking lot, and then he turned on his phone's flashlight. We got out of the car and decided to patrol the outside of the school. We weren't armed, so we had no chance of survival if this went south. I could feel the nervousness kick in. If anyone jumped at us, I would 100% pee in my pants. We got halfway to the back of the school, where the dumpsters were, when we heard crying. "Hello," said Will. The crying stopped. "Are you stupid?" I told Will. Will assured me he had mace and pepper spray on hand. The masked person walked from behind the dumpster. "Brady," the voice said. Before that voice could get registered in my head, Will ran to the man and sprayed him in the eyes. The weapon the man was holding dropped to the ground. Will picked it up as the man fell to the ground screaming in agony. It was a scalpel, something we used in class a few times to dissect frogs and cows' eyes. The courage Will had was insane. He was like Super Saiyan. He ripped the mask from the guy's head, and I was shocked. "Mr. Calvin, you're the serial killer who got Jimmy and Vanessa?" "Yes," he said. "And Principal Lawton. They just haven't reported it on the news yet because he hasn't been missing for 48 hours. His body is in this dumpster." Will and I both backed away from Mr. Calvin. "Why did you do this?" I said. "You were so nice to me, to everyone." "I didn't want to do this," said Mr. Calvin, who was now struggling to breathe as he choked from the mace. "I lost it. You see, I'm a fair teacher. You put in the hard work, you're rewarded with a job well done. That is the same with grades. Vanessa was failing my class. I tried to give her all the resources to help her pass, but she refused. And when I told her she may want to look into considering summer school and repeat the class, since she wanted to become a nurse, this was a prerequisite, she ended up bringing her boyfriend Jimmy in with her to my classroom and said if I didn't change her grade, she'll tell Principal Lawton that I touched her inappropriately, and Jimmy said he would pretend to be a witness to that they would work together to get me removed from my job. I told them that they would do no such thing and deny changing the grade. That's ethics. I couldn't mess with ethics. The next thing you know, after they left, Principal Lawton came back to my room and was hot-headed. He told me he reported me to the police and I was being fired for sexual assault. I was broken. Who was police going to believe, a child or an adult? Plus, there was a witness. Their words against mine. Everything I ever worked for, all the hardships I've been through, would lead me to jail anyway, cried Mr. Calvin. I was mad at what Mr. Calvin did, but was also empathetic to the situation. "Were you the one running in the hall that day?" I asked, near the gym. "Yes," replied Mr. Calvin. "I saw you. I had just murdered Jimmy and went to take care of Principal Lawton," said Mr. Calvin. "Are you going to kill us?" screamed Will. "Calm down," I said to Will. "Where's all the bravery now?" All of a sudden, we heard sirens in the parking lot. It seemed the cops had spotted our car. It was in this moment Mr. Calvin knew that there was no happy ending. He was screwed either way, even if Jimmy, Vanessa, and the principal were still alive. "Looks like I won't be coaching you for that chemistry competition or that chance to go to Disney World after all." "What a shame," said Mr. Calvin. His eyes glistened with tears under the street lamp. He held the scalpel under his neck and made the incision. "No," I said. Blood spewed out as he groaned in agony. We heard police turning to the back of the building. Mr. Calvin dropped to the ground, his eyes wide open. He was gone. He was dead. As the police saw us and approached us, they told us to get down on the pavement with our hands up. I was in an even bigger mess than I planned, all thanks to Will, who wanted to be a hero. The process of proving we aren't the suspects will be long. I'll definitely be in trouble with my aunt, and I won't hear the end of it. My grandma, she might pass out from seeing me on the news. But I guess Will and I did solve a crime. We knew the truth. Mr. Calvin wasn't planning on being caught. And in the worst case that he did, he was prepared to take his own life. But here we were, his witnesses. We knew what really happened. As we were handcuffed and taken to the police car, I thought, it is true that some educators do perverted things like this to their students, and I think they should be behind bars until they die, or deserve capital punishment. But what Vanessa did with falsely accusing a teacher for her own greedy self, for her own greedy future, cost her her life. No one saw a nice teacher go bad like this to take revenge. But I believe Vanessa and Jimmy brought it upon themselves. This was a wild intro to summer of 2008. I will never forget the good conversations I had with Mr. Calvin and his encouraging words. It truly impacted me in a positive way. I've decided, though, to join the chemistry club in the fall and enter that competition. Hopefully we win, and I get to go to Disney World.